All right, so I have that it is 1:01 my time. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Whoever the host is, if you could go ahead and mute everyone out. I know that's going to mute me. That way, if anybody has background noise or anything like that, or if you wouldn't mind, just go ahead and putting yourself on mute. I know sometimes, especially if we're working from home, we have some unexpected distractions. And so if we could put everybody on mute, that would be great. And let's go ahead and get started. First off, my name is Jordan Freed. I am a MAPS executive coach. I have the good fortune of coaching the Huerkamp group there in your market. And so a couple of weeks ago, Olivia came to me and said, what can we do to help our local agents, whether it's the team, the market center, or people who maybe aren't even with Keller Williams, survive but thrive through what's happening today in our world. And I have the good fortune of, over the last, 5 years, I have conducted about 11,000 one-on-one coaching calls. And so I live in this very interesting world of real estate and leadership and human behavior. And so I'm just here today to impart some wisdom and some things with you on what you can do to move your business forward and how you can take territory during this time. So again, I don't know who the host is, but if you can mute everybody, that would be great. So that way we don't get distracted through this. And if it mutes me, I'll take it off. So let's just jump right in. So first things first, right? We've put together a 5-part plan that we've been running for about the last month, and I'm happy to report that it's really worked well, whether you're talking about, a large team or you're talking about an individual. And so what I'm going to share with you doesn't really apply to just any size of an organization, okay? And so the first thing that I'm going to ask you to do is, if you aren't already, just pick up the shift book and read 10 pages a day. And so if you haven't started doing that already, I want you to start reading the shift book, just 10 pages every single day. Okay. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one is for you to understand and wrap your mind around how this is ultimately going to play out and how it works. Because you've got to have the playbook. You have to understand the playbook if you're going to actually navigate this in a profitable way. The second thing is that when you read the shift book, it allows you to communicate with your database and your community in an educated way. You become what Gary has always asked us to be, which is the local economist of choice, because the media's job right now isn't necessarily to educate, it's to startle. And so we want you to be that beacon of light. We want you to be the ones who are really telling the facts and figures of today's market. And so if you read the shift book, you understand the playbook, which allows you to communicate with your database, your community, whoever it is that you're talking to, in a really educated and informed way. And the other thing is that right now we have a huge opportunity. And that is that if you look at how long you've been with Keller Williams, right? And maybe some of you aren't with Keller Williams, but here's something that we should all know, that for the last decade, Training Magazine has named us the #1 training company across all industries so many times that they finally just decided they were going to retire our jersey. And they said, you guys can't even run for this anymore. You can't have Training Company of the Year. That's how good the training that we have developed inside of our company ultimately is. But here's the question, you guys. How much of what you learn at Keller Williams is industry specific? How much of what you learn at Keller Williams is only applicable in the real estate world? And the most common answer I get on that is only about 10% of what we learn here is applicable to real estate. 90% of it is just business knowledge. It works no matter what industry you're in. Let me give you an example. Most of you know what a 36 touch is, right? 36 touch is where you build a database and then you communicate with it 36 times in 12 months. Now, would a 36 touch also work if I owned an auto body shop? Like if I took all my clients and people that I knew in the community and touched them 36 times, is that going to increase my repeat and referral? Absolutely. If I own a yoga studio and I have the best yoga classes in the world, whether they're virtual or in person, and I take all my people and put them on a 36 touch and communicate with them over 12 months, is my business going to do better? Absolutely. So my challenge to you, if we're talking about, step one, which is reading the shift book 10 pages every day, is that you can become kind of a small business consultant and start giving that book to the business owners in your area, with the understanding that it's written by a realtor, but it is applicable to any business. 90% of what is in here is applicable to any business. And so there's a huge opportunity that you could open up right now. I get the question all the time of how do I stay engaged? How do I build new relationships? And right there, finding one thing that you've learned in Keller Williams that will work in any company and teaching it at scale is one of the smartest things that you can do. So that's step one, okay? So read the book, get engaged. James Shaw is doing such an amazing job. He has the Pivot Shift Facebook group, and I got to tell you, every morning he's bringing it, and every afternoon he's bringing it, and he's having some great guests. He's sharing some awesome information. If you are not a member of that group, or that Facebook group, I should say, then go out and join it today and start plugging in. Okay. Now, the first one I said, read shift pages, or 10 pages every single day, and look at it through those three ways. First, it's for your own understanding. Two, it's for communicating to your clients and your community. And number three, use it as a business book to build more relationships and to help local business owners. Okay. Now, the second thing that I really want you to get focused on is your mindset. What I know as a coach is that when it relates to people in achieving their goals, there's usually one of four things that will ultimately get in the way. I call them the 4 F's, okay? The first one is fear. Fear. And we're going to really dig in today on a useful, tactical way that you can address and utilize fear instead of it using you. The second one is financial. And we're going to talk today about remarginalizing your business. And a lot of you, when it comes to remarginalizing your business, whether that's, I should say remarginalizing your life, because we're talking about your business and your personal budget, you live in this very binary world where it's, I'm going to keep these things and I'm going to cut these things. But I'm going to show you something that gives you a little bit more wiggle room there, some things that you can do to reduce expenses without cutting the muscle of your business. In the book Profit First, the author talks about how we've got to cut the fat without cutting the muscle. And I'm going to show you some ways that we can do that today from a financial perspective. The third F is fatigue. Fatigue. Because here's the thing. We are all living in a pandemic, an unprecedented time is the most common phrase that I hear. And what that does to you mentally is you have this thing inside of you called fight or flight. It's a central part of your nervous system. And in today's world, where we are working through things that we've never worked through before, both outside of our homes and inside, because if you have children, right, you have people or kids working or learning from home, you may be working from home more than ever now. And so what happens is we have this heightened sense of fight and flight. So your nervous system is constantly triggered all day long. And see, one of the things that I think is often ignored from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, one of the most underutilized, underappreciated plans is the MREA Energy Plan, page 308 in the MREA. And so my question to you would be, if we're talking about fatigue, do you have a model for your energy plan? How are you ending energy poverty? What are you doing to keep yourself focused and consistent? There's the word, consistent, right? Because it's interesting, about 2 or 3 months ago, somebody that I know that's very well respected in the real estate industry came to me and said, I'm putting together this course for real estate agents that are just starting out in the industry. And I'm curious, what's the most important thing you feel that you think new agents should know? And I said, that's so simple. One thing, the art of being consistent. Showing up every day with your game face on, and not just like screwing around in the morning, being distracted, but to learn how to attack your morning. And here's the thing about where we are as an industry. I don't want to mince words or make any bones about it. Over the last 5 to 6 years, agents have been operating in a very passive or active manner, meaning the market has been propping us up. And so there's this thing called shadow performance. And what shadow performance is, it means that the market has been so good that it's been casting a shadow over your bad habits, over the things you're not doing consistently. And see, what happens in a shift is that moves from a shadow to a spotlight. And now everything that you haven't been doing consistently, all those things that you know you should be doing and aren't, now they have a spotlight on them. And see, if we're looking at passive and active, those modes are not going to work anymore. We've got to shift. And the other two modes that you've got to be in is you've got to be aggressive or you have to attack. If you're going to survive, be aggressive. If you're going to thrive, you're going to have to attack your goals. And if you're going to attack your goals, you've got to have a plan to get out of fatigue and to be what we call energy rich. You have to end energy poverty. That doesn't just happen. That's why it's part of the book. That's why it's in the MREA. What's your energy plan to avoid fatigue? The last step is focus. And see, whatever you focus on, you feel. So right now you might be focused on a seller that you forgot to call yesterday and a deal that may be heading south, and maybe that focus is causing the feeling of anxiety or frustration or whatever. So write this down. Focus equals feeling. Whatever you're focused on is what you're feeling. For example, if I said to you, take a breath. Everybody with me. In through your nose, out through your mouth. What are the top 3 things you are most grateful for right now as we sit here together? Write them down. What are the top 3 things that you are most grateful for? Now, if you actually do the exercise, what's the feeling you get as you write those things down? For most people, it's the feeling of gratitude, which is an energy-rich environment, right? But see, if focus equals feeling, and you're focused on the things that you're grateful for, here's the question. What controls focus? Very simple answer. The questions you habitually ask yourself. See, if you're asking yourself questions like, what am I going to do? How am I going to survive? You're going to get those types of answers. See, your brain has something in it called an automatic presupposition factor. I'm not going to write that down for you. Here's what I want you to do. You have a Google search bar in your brain. Whatever you put into it, just like whatever you put into Google, it's going to show you. So if you put in there, what am I grateful for? Boom, here's the search results. You focus on those things, that's how you feel. You focus on or ask questions around fear, around things that don't serve you, boom, that's what you're going to find, and that's what you're ultimately going to feel, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to start really focusing on, how do I feel right now? What's the emotion I'm experiencing right now? And what's the question that caused this emotion? Because most of them are habitual. You don't even know you're asking that question. But we can reverse engineer our ways into it. Now, we said there were 4 F's, right? The first one I want to go back to, which is financial, or I'm sorry, fear. In February, we had family reunion, and it was in Dallas. It was amazing. In fact, I got to have lunch with Olivia. It was great. She sat there and teased me for 30 to 45 minutes. It was amazing. And so that's her getting back at me. So one of the days when I was at family reunion, I found out that Oprah was actually coming to Dallas and she was on her 2020 vision tour. And I decided to sneak away for an entire day of family reunion and attend Oprah. So cool. So it was me and about 16,999 women. It was in this huge stadium, right? It was where the Mavericks play. And I listened all day. It was amazing. I'm a personal development junkie. I was just in my world, right? But Oprah said something, and she didn't say it exactly this way, but this is how I heard it. And I really want you to get this. So if you're doing something else right now, if you're not writing, not paying attention, if you're anywhere else but here right now, listen. If you get nothing out of today, I want you to get this. She said that fear asks questions. And they usually start with what if questions. And she said the challenge with most people is their fear will ask them questions like, what if my transactions don't close? What if I can't pay my mortgage in May or June? And she said that they never actually take the time to, number one, write down the question the fear is asking. So remember what I said, fear asks questions. They usually start with what if. The first step is to become acutely aware of the question that your fear is asking. So a perfect example is, what if my deals don't close? What if I can't pay my mortgage? Perfect. Write that question down, document it, pull it out of your head and put it down on paper or into your computer. Now here's the thing, fear can be your friend because it prepares you. And she said what she does that's different than most people, rather than just living in that unknown loop, is she will actually write the question down and then she will answer it. Okay, what if your deals don't close? What would you do? And see, the military has a really cool acronym for this. It's called PACE. And the way that they use it is whenever they design a mission or something that they're going to go out and do, they have a 4-leveled play plan. And so PACE, we have a primary plan, an alternate plan, a contingency plan, and an emergency plan. Primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. Okay, so let's see, how do we use this with fear? What if my transactions don't close? Okay, what if they don't close? What is your primary plan? What would you do? That plan doesn't work. What's your alternate plan? What would you do then? Alternate plan doesn't work. What would you do then? Contingency all the way down to an emergency. And you know what's interesting? Is that when I'm on a call with somebody and they're in a fearful state of mind and I start walking them through this exercise, what are the questions your fear is asking? Let's write that question down. Okay, what's our primary plan, our alternate plan? Let's answer the fear. You know what this is the equivalent of? I have the good fortune of having a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old daughter. My 4-year-old does not like going to sleep. And every night it's the same thing. I'm scared, I'm scared. Will you look in my closet? Of course I'll look in your closet. So what I do is I always turn the light on and I show her there's nothing in here, right? Her fear asks the question, what's in my closet? When I turn the light on, she sees there's nothing there. You've got to turn your lights on. You've got to look at the questions your fear is asking you, document it, and then create a 4-level plan so that you can move forward with certainty and confidence. Don't live in the loop of fear. Now, the other thing that we deal with from a mindset perspective when we enter time like this is anxiety, right? Focusing on the future. When will this end? Those types of things, right? And what I've found as a coach is that anxiety is usually a result of one of 3 things. So write this down. Anxiety is usually a result of one of 3 things. Number 1, there is something you know you should be doing that you're not doing. What are you not doing that you know you should be? The second one is there's something you're doing that you know you shouldn't be. So what are you doing that you know you shouldn't be doing. And then number 3, this is the big one in today's world. You're trying to control the uncontrollables. What is the uncontrollable you're attempting to control? See, what's interesting is just like when you look at the questions and the loops that fear ultimately runs with us, anxiety very much does the same thing. And when you lay it out and get very intentional, very purposeful about sitting in your mind space and taking control of your thought processes, and you answer these questions, well, you get a sense of like peace. You get a sense of, okay, now I'm clear of what's causing this. And I used to coach coaches. That was a big part of what I do. And what we discovered is that all change goes through 3 stages. The first one is awareness. So when you ask the questions of anxiety, you create the awareness of what is causing it. The second one is ownership, right? Because you are not the puppet and the world is the puppeteer. You are in control of how you feel. Emotions are like ordering off of a menu in a restaurant. You get to pick what you do and what you feel. Now, you may not have known that before today, but when you control the questions, which are the focus, when you're answering the questions of fear and then ultimately identifying the causes of anxiety, now you get to sit in the driver's seat and take ownership of this. And see, once you've driven that awareness and you've got the ownership, the next thing is different actions. What am I going to do differently moving forward? And see, that's the real piece, that you can't just sit there. You have to do something different. You have to be willing to attempt and try things that are different for you. So here's the last thing on mindset, okay? This is one of the most powerful coaching tools that I use. Whenever I find somebody who's stuck, whether that is I don't know which way to go, or fearful, anxious, whatever, it's not my job to just start throwing up answers and techniques and, like tactical things to do. My job is to help them tap into the deepest source of their own wisdom. So I always start with the same question. Write this down. Who's the person in the world you love the most? Now, they usually will say a spouse, children, maybe it's a sibling, but who's the person you love most? Perfect. Okay, we've got that person. Now, let's say that if it's a kid, 15, 20 years down the road, they call you up. Say, Mom, I've got this business, right? We're in a global pandemic. I'm scared. I'm anxious. I don't know what to do. What do I do? So imagine that now you're in the seat of a parent and your kid is asking you, what do I do? How do you answer that question? What would be the answer to the question if the person you cared about most in the world was asking you? Because that is your best advice. That's the deepest source of wisdom you as a human being have available to you. And my question is, are you following your best advice? Are you living your best advice? Because until you live your best advice, you can't live your best life. It's just a rule of the world. So do you have the courage to live the advice you would give to the people that you love most, right? So from a mindset perspective, I think we just covered a lot. And I know that there's something in there that you can be ultimately using. And so when we look at, taking all this and now it's time to get into action, oftentimes we start getting into action and the question is, oh, I don't know what to do. And see, I call that the how trap. And I, as a coach, do my best to stay out of the how trap, because when I start throwing up ideas and strategies on them, and then they take them and half-heartedly do them and they don't work, they come back and go, your idea didn't work, right? Not to say we don't ever just take the bull by the horns and call the play. And yet, here's the way that I intend to, or the way that I activate your awesome. This is the way we do it, okay? So again, I go back to the same question. Who's the person in the world you love the most? my son, my daughter, whatever, perfect. Okay, what's your goal in the next 30 days? Well, I need to get at least 6 purchase contracts. Perfect, awesome, that's our goal. So let's just say your son, God forbid, gets sick. You take him to the doctor, doctor says, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is we can save him. The bad news is it's going to require a life-saving surgery. I'm the only doctor in the world that can do it. I don't take cash. I don't take credit. I take signed purchase agreements, and you have to get 6 of them. Now, I know this is a silly example. I totally get it, but just sit with me. Think through it. If that was actually on the line, would you go to your kid and go, man, it was nice knowing you. Let's enjoy the next 30 days together and really, you know, ride this thing out and enjoy it? Or are you going to wake up and with a level of intensity and a level of action like never before? See, in that moment, you moved everything from a should to a must. In that moment, you activated your awesome. Now, rather than doing it from such a fearful, negative place, here's my question to you. How do you get yourself to want your goal so badly that you would behave and play the game with that level of intensity? Are you really thinking about what your goals are, why they're important to you? Here's the litmus test for how important a goal is to a client. How I know whether or not they're going to hit goal all boils down to one question. What happens if you don't hit it? And if they go, oh, I mean, it'll be okay, then I know it's not really their goal. What they have is a stated goal, not a real goal. And see, this is like something that runs rampant in the real estate community. Our audio and video do not match. We say we want one thing, but when we watch our video or we watch our actions, they don't align. But here's what I want you to understand. It's never in the how trap that we get caught. You just haven't activated enough reasons why to go out and achieve that goal. It's just not that important to you. And there are ways that you can ultimately do that. But start with what I just gave you. If someone's life was on the line, what activities would you do? Boom, you're instantly out of the how trap. You instantly know how to go out and build the business and do what you have to do to get the 6 contracts, right? Okay. So now, the other F that I mentioned earlier was financial. This is a big one, you guys. Again, if we go back to shadow performance versus spotlight, this shift is now spotlighting whether or not you have been financially making good decisions or not, right? I mean, if you're carrying heavy loads of credit card debt, you're driving around in cars you can't afford, all those things are happening, then now you've got a spotlight on your spending habits. So there's really 2 or 3 things that we want you to do right away. Number 1, personal and your professional budget. We want you to cut those things by 25%. Now, again, I mentioned earlier that a lot of us look at this in this very binary cut and keep type of approach. I'm going to type this into the chat box, and I want you all to write this down, but write it vertically. K-R-O-N-C. Actually, I just sent it to one person. Let me change that. Here we go. K-R-O-N-C. Write this vertically. Now, the K stands for keep. Those are things that are vital to your profit. Those are things that we can't cut. That's the muscle. R stands for replace. Now, this is some of the gray area that I want you to be thinking about as it relates to reducing your expenses, both personally and professionally. So replacing means that you find an alternative, meaning you look at this product or service and ask the question, who else offers this at a lower price? So we find things in your business, we find other vendors, we find other service providers that can give us the same result at a lesser price. The O is offset, and that's really driven by 2 questions. One is, who else could be paying for this? So for example, I have this client who does these really cool mailers. They're very creative and he's very consistent with it. And I got his last one a few weeks ago and he said, what'd you think of the mailer? And as always, I said, it's amazing. You guys always hit the cover off the ball. It's awesome. And I said, but let me ask you this. Does it diminish your brand at all to take the back of that mailer or the back of the postcard and feature a few of your service providers, your top home inspector, your top lenders, your top title people, what have you? And he goes, I don't think so. And I said, okay, so why aren't you doing that with these mailers and offsetting the cost so that you're only paying, you know, a quarter, a third, or half of it instead of the whole thing? And he said, well, I hadn't really thought of that. And I said, right, that's offsetting. And see, again, agents are really good at what to keep and what to cut. And that offsetting piece is huge. The other question outside of who else can pay for this or help me pay for this is what services can we share? So think Netflix, right? Like my sister has my Netflix username and password. I have her Hulu username and password. Now, somebody will probably turn me in for this, but you all do it too. But she and I have worked out an agreement. She pays for that, I pay for this. So what are the services that you as real estate professionals all kind of pay for that you could share or offset if you collectively got together, looked at your expenses and thought of it that way? Now, this is a big one right now, negotiate. And negotiating means calling your providers, calling your service people and saying, what can you do for me over the next few months? Here's the script that I would invite you to take, whether you're keeping it or not. Remember, this isn't just for things that we want to negotiate with, it's everything. Call them up and say, hey, we were looking at your product or service and I gotta tell you, we really love it. In fact, it's very useful in our business. And yet with the current environment, we have to reduce our budget and I don't know if we can afford it. And before we cut it, I want to see if there's anything you can do about the price. And keep in mind, negotiating does not mean we're cutting it forever. It may just mean that we're hitting the pause button. Now, sometimes you'll do this and their answer may surprise you in a negative or a positive way. So most of the time now, businesses are really working on how they can be of service and ease the burden of all of us. But for example, I called Sprint, who I've been a customer of for 12 years, I think, said, hey, I've got this other offer from AT&T, wanted to see if there's anything you could do. And they basically said, it's been nice knowing you. We're not going to reduce our service and good luck at AT&T. Now, I wasn't ever really going to go to AT&T because AT&T sucks in our area and Sprint is internationally headquartered right up the road. And yet, at least I tried, right? Are you going through and doing this on your bills, both personally and in your business? Are you negotiating? And then the C, that's cut. Those are the things we're just going to reduce or get rid of. And again, 20 to 25% is what we want to see out of your budget, reduced out of your budget as fast as possible. The other thing about financial is once you have reduced your budget, especially personally down to the bare bones, then take that number and multiply it by 6. So let's just say it's $6,000 for you. When you multiply 6 by 6 or $6,000 by 6, you get $36,000, right? That's how much money you need in cash. You need a 6-month reserve as quickly as possible. If you are using Dave Ramsey or on some kind of accelerated debt pay down, I would invite you to start paying the minimums and all the money you were using to pay down debt, start throwing it in a savings account. Get to 6 months of reserves personally and professionally as quickly as you possibly can and never touch that money unless you absolutely need it. My challenge to you would be get to 6 months of reserves and then never have to use it because you're hustling so much, you're so aggressive in attacking your goal that you never actually have to touch it, right? And then the last thing I'm going to say on financial is understand what's coming out from the SBA. Pay attention to what things that you have available to you, either as a corporation, an LLC, or a sole proprietor. because the government does not have an ISA division that will call you and tell you all the things that you ultimately qualify for. They don't have that. It's on you to be researching as an adult and figuring out which things you can and can't take advantage of, and then taking advantage as much as you possibly can. If you have a team, you need the Paycheck Protection Program, you need to apply for that, get with your bank and your accountant and do it right away. I've heard that they're considering, I haven't read this in a couple of days, but they're considering adding an additional $250 billion to that. And if you don't know, the majority of that will turn into a grant as long as you don't let go of your people. It's for payroll, right? Okay, so one of the things that's really important to me on every live Zoom call, class, anything that I do or teach, is that I always want to make certain that you can walk away with at least one thing that you can instantly inject into your life or your business that will help you make more money. It's great to talk about mindset. It's great to talk about all those tools and things that we just shared together. But it's also important to have ideas, strategies, things that you can use to ultimately make money. Now, you've probably all heard that from, just Keller Williams or things that have been passed around, that you can take market share or you can take mind share. But see, I think there are 4 shares that we want to be really paying attention to. Market share and mind share are 2 of them. 3 and 4 are the talent share. There is going to be more people moving around in our industry, meaning leaving teams, brokerages, people that aren't supporting them, or exiting the industry than we've probably seen in the last 5 to 10 years. If you've been licensed since 2008, you know exactly what I mean. I also am referring to, if you're a team owner and you're looking for rock star talent in your operations, this is the time to start looking around for those people, because talent is on sale. You have been recruiting and working in the best economy that any of us have ever seen, some of the lowest unemployment we've ever seen. And as you can see, unemployment is skyrocketing right now. Talent is on sale. What are you doing to get your unfair share of the talent share? Then we go to heart share. Heart share are the things that you're doing for your community. It's for you to touch the hearts of the people, to give them hope, to give them help, and humor. Call it the 3 H's. Now, I have a client in North Carolina. What she's done is she created something called #OneGoodThing. And every morning she gets on her Facebook personal page. It's then shared to her business page, and she shares one good thing. That same team organized efforts for people in their community, because there are a number of people in nursing homes right now that are not able to see their families. And they organized 30 to 40 people to start writing letters to the residents at the local nursing home. That's heart share, right? I heard of a MAPS coach recently that he's still in production. He has a production team. What he did is he hired a magician, and the magician did a private show for the families in his database. He had over 50 children attend on Friday night through Zoom. What are you doing to touch the hearts of the people in your area? Because the mind share, the heart share, the market share, the talent share you gain in this time, if played properly, will never be relinquished. Now, if we're switching gears and we're talking about how do we get market share right now? Well, one thing I would be advocating for all of you is to set up a reverse bold 100. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details on this, but what I will do real quick here is I'll pop a link of just things that I've documented. I've had several clients who have done these, and examples, things that you can take off, rip off and duplicate. My ask is that if you improve it, I want to know about it. I want to know about what cool ideas and things that you've added to this. But a reverse bold 100 is, instead of outbound contacting 100 people in one day, you pick a prize, something that you're going to give away, and the idea is to get 100 people to call you in one day. Now, one thing that I've really loved that I thought was so classic is I have a client, Josh Anderson in Nashville, Tennessee. What they're doing is they invested like $500 in this Dyson hair, help me out, Olivia, blow dryer. It's been a long day. And so what they're doing for Mother's Day, they're doing a giveaway. And what all the people have to do is on this one Friday, I think it's the last Friday of April, they call in, the team will be available from 9 to 4, and they register themselves or their favorite mom for that giveaway. What's so cool about that gift is that most women, even if they had the $400 to $500 to purchase that, they would never spend that money on themselves. And he actually pulled his database and asked, what would you want? And so that's a perfect example of a reverse fold 100 that you could be doing themed around Mother's Day. Another ones that have been really popular at this time is supporting local businesses by purchasing gift cards to local restaurants that are still open and doing delivery or carry out, and then giving away the gift cards. So now you're supporting the restaurants, and at the same time, you're giving the clients of your database something that they can really use. That's something you could do within the next 7 to 10 days to start communicating, talking with your people, and hopefully drum up business and mind share, market share, what have you. Now, another thing that I want to share with you is what we call the COVID-19 survival kit. This is something I developed a few weeks, well, about a week and a half ago, and I'm constantly adding to it. And so again, I'll pop this into the comments or the chat box here so that you can go out and look at it. But what this has is there's about 22, 23 different ways that you can generate business or generate revenue. So it's in there now. You should be able to go out and check it out. Again, rip it off, duplicate it, but if you improve it, I want to know about it, because I want this to kind of be a grand central station to all great ideas in lead generation and generating revenue in our businesses for real estate agents for the foreseeable future. But in here, there are, like I said, 22, 23 ideas. And what I would invite you to do is go check those out and see what are the 3 to 5 that I could ultimately be utilizing right now to be adding people to my pipeline, to be communicating with my database or building my database. And I promise you, no matter what behavioral style you are, whether you're a hardcore, stone cold prospector or more of a face-to-face relationship driven person, there's something out there for you that you can ultimately use. Now, at the very top of that, there's this thing called the 3 to Thrive. Here's a question for you. What are the top 3 available opportunities to buyers, sellers, and investors in your market today? What are the top 3 opportunities available to buyers, sellers, investors in your market today? So what I would invite you to do is every week or every other week to sit down and answer that question. Maybe you mastermind with some agents in your office, like those people that are super clever and smart, but get your 3 to Thrive, because here's what we need above all else is we need messages that we can be communicating to the world about real estate, good messages. And here's what I know about coaching agents. You'll want to write this down. Most agents are not call reluctant, they're value deficient. Most agents are not call reluctant, they are value deficient. And so what I mean by that is that they haven't or are not sitting down and truly thinking through things that they would be proud of to share with the real estate community or their database. And so I implore you now, before you do anything else on that survival kit, to design your 3 to Thrive. I put some examples and some things in there. And again, I would love for you to rip off, duplicate, and improve, and then share it back with me. But all of those things are things that you could be doing right now to gain market share, to gain mind share, to gain talent share, and ultimately heart share. Now, I always like to leave the last, 10 to 15 minutes of any course, class, anything that I'm doing open to questions. Maybe there's something I said and I said it too fast. So if you have a question, please go over and pop that into the inbox right now. And I'm also going to ask you for ahas. Now, if you've been on this call with me, I think we've been doing this now for what, 46 minutes? And you haven't learned a single thing. Just make something up so you don't hurt my feelings. As you can tell, I'm a very sensitive person. So just make something up and pop it into the chat box. So this is from Kim. I bought $400 of local curbside gift cards and asked my database to message me who needed these. Frontline workers, people who recently became unemployed. So I asked my database, but didn't actually give them to the database. Heart share. Oh my gosh, Kim. Kim, can I rip that off and put that in my survival kit? Just give me a thumbs up if that's okay. I absolutely love that. That is a perfect example of heart share right there, right? We had a local agent here in our office, and what she did is she's an excellent sewer. She started sewing masks, selling them for $5 a pop, and all the money that she donated or that she made, she donated to Just Food, which is the local organization that's taking care of most of the kids here in our town that rely on school meals. So I love that idea. That's a perfect example of heart share right there. What other ahas, questions, comments, things that I can share with you to help you all navigate this? What have I not covered that you hope I would, or what question do you have? And if you don't want to pop it in the chat box, you can always pop yourself off of mute and ask. I've sent Starbucks gift cards to health teachers and healthcare professionals, thanking them for their doing. That's from Jessica. Love that. Brooke said, love the question, what are you not doing that you should be doing? Yeah, I actually learned that question from Tony DeCello, who, if you don't know who he was like the godfather of real estate coaching. I had the good fortune of masterminding with Tony for an hour every week for 3 years. And out of all the questions he taught me, the not questions were the absolute best. What are you not doing right now that if you were doing it, you'd be hitting your goal? What are you not doing that if you were doing it, you'd be reducing your anxiety, right? Okay. Any other ahas or questions or anything else before I shift gears and ultimately finish off the time that we have here today? Colin said, love your anxiety analysis. So simple and right on the money. Thanks, you rock. You rock, Colin. Okay, so need to plan another Bold 100. That's from Holly. Yeah, Holly, you do. Holly actually held the record amongst all of the people in my schedule for Bold 100s for the number of call-ins. And she held it for like a month, and then somebody knocked her off, and she hasn't reclaimed her throne. But if I know Holly, she's going to be doing that very, very soon, right? Okay. Yes, you must win. That's great. I love that. Okay. So just to recap what we've covered here today. Number one is that we need to be reading the Shift book a minimum of 10 pages every single day. If you truly want to master Shift, go to kwconnect.com/courses. I will put that right here. And download the Shift instructor manuals, because there are action items, exercises, things that are in those instructor manuals that are not in the book. And so if you go out and read those and then start teaching them, whether it's through Zoom or maybe when this thing lifts and we're able to get back into a classroom together, Gary says that the student forces the teacher to prepare. And so when you force yourself to prepare to teach Shift, you also master it. And that is something that you can use in your own business. So make sure that you're reading those 10 pages every single day. Now, the other thing is that step 2, we talked about your mindset. We talked about the 4 F's, right? So we have fear, we have financial, we have the fatigue, and then we have focus. And we talked about different ways that you can keep your mindset strong, keep your body strong. Remember the energy plan. Those are all things that you could be utilizing to keep yourself focused. And remember what I said, consistent. Consistency is the key. Step 3, we really dug in on the financial piece that we want you to reduce by 25% personally, professionally. We also want you to be saving your reserves and paying attention to the SBA loans. And then lastly, we talked about what you could do to gain market share, mind share, talent share, and heart share. And I shared with you the Reverse Bold 100, the COVID-19 survival kit. Here is my last question for you. This is one of my favorites. And what it tells me is how, or what the purpose of this is to elevate your thinking. It's not to be punitive. Some people, I don't know why, they take this as a punitive question. But here's the question. Imagine that you're sitting there. You get a phone call. You look down. It's a 512 telephone number. It's an Austin number, so you answer it. And it's Mindy Hager, who is Gary's personal assistant. And she says, please hold for Gary Keller. So then Gary gets on the line and he says, hi there. I just want you to know that we know you've been doing some great things up there in Minnesota. And I would actually love to come up there and just to shadow you for a few days. You won't even know I'm there. I'm just doing some research for the MREA too, but I'd really love to just study and shadow you for a few days. Now, you're not going to say no to Gary, so you hang up the phone. Let's just pretend that was on a Friday. Gary's going to be in your office on Monday. First question, if Gary Keller is coming to your office, what's the first thing you're going to do to prepare? How are you going to get organized? What are you going to do with your desk? That's number one. What are you going to prepare from an environment perspective? How are you going to prepare your bunker if Gary's going to be there? Now, he's also going to be watching you lead generate. So how are you going to prep for your lead generation? What are you going to do that you're not doing now if Gary's going to be sitting from you 3 feet all day long? So those are the 2 questions about prep. Environment, your bunker, and number 2, how would you prep for lead gen? And then he's there, right? It's Monday morning. He's in your office. You've done your introductions. Now it's time to get on your lead generation. What would change about the way you lead generate if Gary were sitting 3 feet from you? Here's another variation of the question that Brooke likes so much. What is it that you would never let Gary see you doing if he was sitting there with you? What would you stop doing if he was sitting there with you? Maybe not answering your phone, having your email up, looking at social media. See, that's the level of focus. Play your A game right now. If there was ever a time to be and play at your best, now is it. You've got the catalyst, you've got the ideas, you've got the focus. Now let's get after it. So thank you all for being here today. If you need anything from me, my email address, I'll pop it in here, jordanfried@kw.com. And I'm happy to answer email, whatever. If you ask Olivia, she knows I hate email, so it takes me a little bit of time. So if I don't respond right away, just give me a day or so and I'll get back to you. Thank you all for being here. And if there's ever, again, anything I can do, please let me know, okay? All right, everyone. Make it a great day.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.